Good morning again, of course, and welcome to our first big story. October 1st, Nigeria marked 65 years of nationhood. Today we pause to reflect, to celebrate, and to take stock. What have we gained? What have we lost? And what must we confront to move forward? In his recent Independence Day address, President Bola Tinubu spoke of survival, resilience, and racing against time to redeem the promise of our founding generation. Meanwhile, commentators have urged us to cease blaming Nigeria for self-inflicted wounds and instead recognize a shared responsibility for lost opportunities.
So in this hour, we ask, at 65, is Nigeria stronger or more fragile? Joining us in the studio to help us answer these questions are two very important voices that will be bringing sharp lenses on public affairs, security, and cultural memory. First, we have in the studio Joe Femi-Dagunro. He is a public affairs, seasoned public affairs analyst, and he joins us here in the studio. Also joining us is Samson Toromade. He is a storytelling lead at archive.ng, and together they will be bringing insight. And what I love about our panel of guests today is that they are from both sides of Nigeria, young and old. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Toromade, it's good to have you again.
Yeah,
Thank you for coming on. First of all, great article that you did with archive.ng, being able to chronicle the speeches of each president in the last, each president and head of states in the last 65 years of our independence. But we're going to get into that. But let me start with you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us again, once again. I mean, from the beginning and just watching not just the reports that we played earlier from our reporter, Amazing Adesanya, but also the president's speech and the trajectory of this country when it comes to democracy, governance. How well are we at 65? Are we fragile? Is the divide wider than it's ever been from our founding generation?
Well, basically, when you look at this country the way we are still united, whether we like it or not. You know, we can bring politics into it to determine whether we are divided, we are fragile, we are sensitive, whatever, but we are still united. That's the most important thing. And I can understand the fact that most people, we want to say a lot about 1960 today, but let's look at where we are and where we are going. The past can only guide us. We've missed a lot of things, and we've missed a lot of activities. We've missed a lot of chances. But is that where we are going to just sit down and continue to, lament on what we have missed, what we have done wrong? But the most important thing is here we are now, 2025. What can we do? Where are we going to 2026 and 2027? I think that's the most important thing, and that is the thing that most Nigerians want to know. You see, politics has always been opposition, and the other one who's in government will always say, I'm right. Opposition will always come back and say you are wrong. But what are you going to do for the country? What are you doing for the country? If you go on the street, just the normal people, they will tell you the problems of this Nigeria, and they will tell you as well solutions. They will prefer solutions to the problem. But the government, are they listening? Are they doing what is right? Where are we? Some few weeks ago, you see that the world is, changing. They are finding, researchers are making efforts to defeat cancer, to defeat HIV. You now see Africa, you see Nigeria. Where are our researchers? What are they doing? ASU is saying, look, we'll soon go on strike. Is that what we want to build our young generations with? What is going on? Teachers are not being paid well. Schools are not being, equipped. Laboratories are not there. Libraries are not there in most of these schools. So these are the things we've missed. When I was going to school, fully loaded laboratory, fully loaded, libraries, and you are enjoying it. You don't even feel any difference. But now I see schools where you have 70 people in a classroom. That's annoying when you see that. But is that where we are going? Is that what we want to do? These complaints will always be there. And as at now, but are we going to keep complaining, or we want to find a solution to it? The 1960, there was no private refinery. But today we have a private refinery, and more will still come. So we have to balance it and not looking at the extreme negative and leaving the positive side of it.
Quite interesting.
Yeah,
I was just lost in, just taking it
taking into cognizance, everything
that
else.
was amazing. I think I will go to Samson. You are, representing the younger generation and, doing storytelling. And Judith had mentioned, your article about, former presidents and their statements. So for me, what was the narrative of the story that got you to want to have to talk about the stories or illustrate things that are not being told properly?
Yeah, I think the central question that we wanted to answer with that article was to just what does president say about Nigeria in like these speeches? What does it say about Nigeria's journey, right? Because independence is basically like our birthdays, and when everyone has birthdays, they take stock. What did I do this year? Where do I want to go in the next couple of years, right? So it was, if you had to read like all of these speeches over 75 years, what would we discover? So that was the central question we were trying to answer, but also just in the sense of what does it tell you about Nigeria? So from doing that story, for example, we found that Nnamdi Azikiwe was talking about tribalism like very seriously in 1965.
Wow.
He was basically rebuking everyone like, we have to be united. We have to stop saying things this way. We have to work together in a way that made me feel, I was reading, I'm like, am I in 2025? Do you understand? And from reading that speech also, for example, we discovered that Gowon was talking seriously about, we're going to end epileptic power supply in his 1974 speech. Obasanjo was saying the same thing in his 2001 speech. Buhari Tinubu could easily say the same thing today, right? So it's plotting things that have not changed or things that have. So also, for example, in his 1965 speech, also, Azikiwe has said something about he's going abroad for medical treatment. And it's the same thing that's happened over the past few administrations. And it kind of, in a way, tells you the progress or non-progress that we made in the healthcare system, for example. And so, like, when you take, like, all of those fragments, it tells you, or it gives you a picture of where has Nigeria really progressed, what has changed. And in that sense, it is, how do we change that? How do we fix it so that another 65 years from now, it's not the same things that are coming up in these speeches. There has to be a sense of, we have made progress. We have stopped talking about this. We don't promise this anymore like we are 5 years old. We are 65 now. We have new problems.
I'm glad you're saying that we have new problems, because that's the argument I was making on the bus ride to work with my fellow colleagues. And I was saying that this dispensation and this new era that we find ourselves, this AI technological-driven era, means that the odds sometimes can be in your favor, but also the challenges are completely different from what it was back in 1960. But that also means that your challenges can be tackled better, all thanks to technology. But when we think about, Mr. Josie's submission, when he said that, back in his day, laboratories were stacked, there was bursary, there was things like that, and it was somewhat better. But when you look at the trajectory, somewhat has deteriorated. At the fore of that is also insecurity. When we look at all of the headlines that we've seen, banditry was not an issue back in the 60s. Neither was it at the 70s. It's a new type of ills or odds that this dispensation now has to face. And so, from his speech, he said that, everything is working, he's doing this, he's doing that. He chronicled about 12 high points of his administration, and that's the president. But is our government out of depth when it comes to dealing with insecurity? And I remember during the ex-SDS's book launch, when the former president, ex-president Obasanjo was saying that it has changed, that the lines are so much of blurred that you don't know where Boko Haram ends, where banditry starts, and where kidnapping is. And so how then is this administration out of depth when it comes to tackling insecurity in its entirety?
When you look at all those odd things you've mentioned, you will discover that it is not of 3 or 4 years ago. It's been there. Look at what he has chronicled, and the issue of health, standard in Nigeria, the issue of, this country has passed through war. We've gone through war. We've come together to reunite and all that. A lot of things we've passed through. But now, this is a government that is trying to, put all those things together to make it work. So it's going to be a little bit difficult. And that is what I think this government, they should have a kind of, policy marketing department whereby people just have to tell the truth to the masses. It's not going to be an immediate thing. Now you are getting loans are given to students, and bursary is back. Some of those things are coming back. It's going to take some time. So like he said, it's not even in the next 65 years, most of us will not be alive here to analyze all this. Okay, God willing, But then the point is this gentleman, the president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is trying to make all these things work. It can't be perfect or so good as what we want in the next 4 years. We must be deceiving ourselves. We must be dreaming. But it's going to take some time. But we as citizens, I think we don't have that patience to wait for the next 4 years or 8 or 12 years. Look at 65 years, all this, mess we find ourselves right now. And it's going to take some time. If Azikiwe has, been going abroad for medical treatment like he has chronicled, you discover that what's going on. So it's not strange for all these people. What has happened to our, constitution? The Constitution allows for all these things, and these people who are doing the Constitution, who are repackaging or packaging them, they made the Constitution in a way that it will benefit them because they know this might happen. Look at what is going on in corruption today. So how many people have we jailed really, and how many people have you pardoned, presidential pardons or stuff like that are coming back into the system to begin to work again. So you see all these things happening, and then you see some other countries whereby you steal a little amount of money, you are jailed or you are killed. So I'm not saying that all is perfect, but to really bring us back to the next 5 years, not even 30 years or 65 years, we need to do a lot, and the citizens have to do a lot as well. Look at the president said, I have given governors a lot of money, more than any other president, because of subsidy. I've given local government, but what is happening?
Mr. Joe, I can argue with you that giving governors a lot of money can also translate, again, allegedly, before anyone calls on my head. Because we've seen a lot of decamping from the APC.
Right.
Can you argue that that is for the welfare of the state or for political reasons?
From APC?
So recamping from PDP, I beg your pardon, to the APC. Decamping.
Decamping.
Entire state structures.
Yes.
Sweeping through the southeast. Would you agree that is for state welfare reasons or politically motivated?
It is whichever way you even look at it. The Constitution allows this for this mess. The Constitution allows for this mess. If you tell us that, look, you can't just decamp because of the goodies you are going to get in another place or because of the pardon you are going to get in another party, but are we holding them responsible? Have we recalled any senator or any rep? Have we recalled any one of them in some state you are paying? I mean, we have automobiles being assembled in this country, but look at any motorcade. You see a lot of all these, brand luxury cars. Why don't we have, some meters? Why don't you have GAC? Why don't you have Jelly and all these cars that are being assembled in this country? Even your senators will not buy that. Your councillor may not even buy that. You see, these are the problems we have. So is it the problem of Azikiwe? Is it the problem of Awolowo or Madam Fodi or whoever you want to call? But this is the problem of now. And we are not saying so much about that because the Constitution allows for some of this. And the president will tell you, look, I'm the executive. These guys, they don't have to do, I don't control their budget. And then the state assembly said, the governor will say, no, I don't tell them what to do because there's separation of power. So all these things are brought together because we have a constitution that we have to really repackage. But then who does that? The same people will go into the place and still repackage the constitution and bring clauses. You and I, do you have a copy of the constitution?
Of course I do. I'm a journalist.
Yes, okay, because you are a journalist. How many Nigerian citizens will have that? They will not even spend their money to buy it anyway.
Well, because they have to choose between a loaf of bread and, food and... Queen, if you forgive me, just for a second, right? Because I really want to come to you, Samson, and pick up from what he said. Now, first of all, is talking about the Constitution and whether it's enforcement, transparency, or what the Constitution allows. But most importantly is what he's saying, from his first submission, is that the more you look, the more things remain the same, never-ending world, I think the good book, the Bible, also says that about how the world will remain the same, and it's a never-ending world, never changes. And so chronicling all the speeches from every head of state and every president of Nigeria in the last 65 years, and your job as chief storyteller, archiving Nigeria's story, why have we not been able to look back into our history to inform the future, to correct this? The most simple things, constitutional reforms, insecurity, communal clashes. Why are we still stuck where we are? Or why does it seem like the divide has always been there, it's never changing?
I won't try to push you like I have the answer to why as a country we are not there. Because most of what we grew up with is we are just terrible with history, right? We don't teach them well enough in schools. And so there's a lot of disconnection between what has happened in the past and the realities that we are currently living now. Because I agree with him when he said the thing about insecurity isn't like really necessarily new. Because, for example, you can draw like a straight line between Boko Haram and might have seen uprisings that were happening in the 80s under Babangida. And so it's that they assume like new colors, you put them in like new bottles, but like it's the same problems, right? And so I think in the way when we archive memory, a part of our job, like the biggest part of our job is curiosity about what's happened in history. And the point of it is that we learn enough to be able to correct like present ills. And so the beginning of that is just knowledge, right? We have to know what has happened to even know how to start thinking about changing like, the cycles of repetition that happen with history. And so if a president today stands up and says, I'm going to do this and do that, we can recall and say, oh, somebody said this like 30 years ago. Right. So, and this is what happened. Can we look at what happened that 30 years ago and make sure we don't repeat that now? Or maybe because it's been 30 years, there's a new way that we can think about like those problems and how we can solve those problems.
I think before I come to Mr. Joe, I wanted to ask, basically, these days they say, Gen Zs are no interested. I'm not sure if you're a Gen Z or you're millennial. It's Gen Z also. So, we talk about how the youths are not being involved in wanting change because it's like, okay, everybody wants change, but it's like, it's the same thing. It's the same speech, the same wedding vow every year, these 65 years. So my question is, based on the fact that you're having, to tell stories with what's happening in Nigeria, how do you connect with the Gen Z? How do I put it?
How do you draw them in?
Yes, how do you draw them in? Because it feels like every generation, there's a way you need to communicate. So is it that with storytelling, that's the thing for Gen Z, that's the way they're able to understand in a short form? Because I tell you, strips, one picture, I just have an idea of what's happening. So is that how they get to understand that, okay, what's happening in this country is not just about TikTok, it's serious?
So it's a lot of things, right? Again, like I said, a lot of our work is curiosity, and we want people to, so for example, when something happens that's currently like trending online, for example, the first thing we do is go into like the archives, as this happened before. And so if Toby Amuson complains, for example, that the AFN Center kits that are like this, we check. And we did check, and we found a similar issue from 1995. We found a similar issue from 2001. And so it's a way for young people to know that the problems that they are dealing with isn't new. And he also informs, we have to change this. In a way, we are giving people tools to take action. Right. Because, for example, I think one of the not as reported parts of like Nigerian history, for example, is how we receive. So, for example, young people have this notion of, our parents' generation, our grandparents' generation, they didn't fight back enough. They didn't fight oppression and this and that. But if you really look at Nigerian history, it's a very strong thread where people are just like really pushing back. You can go as far back as the Aba Women's protest in 1929. There was a general workers' strike in 1945. There was a coal miners' protest in 1949. There was Ali Must Go. There was a student-led protest in 1978. There was a pro-democracy protest post-June 12. All of those are like really strong moments in Nigerian history where people protested. But like, if you had to ask like a young people, the first frame of reference for them would be like NSAS, for example.
Yes, because that's
and it would be like also like a new thing, like, this has never happened before in history. But so there's a disconnect, right? And what we need to fix is that disconnect, so that if you want to protest today, you can look back at a protest from 1929 or a protest from 1945. Look at their strategies. Did it work? What can we change? What can we do better? So that we are protesting better years later. So we have to understand that we are part of like a long process, of a long journey, and things didn't just start happening. There's a context for where we are currently, and we have to learn from the things that have led to where we are.
We did not turn 65 years today.
We didn't do this.
It's been 65
and I must tell you, this guy's doing a great job.
A fantastic job.
You're doing a great job.
Yeah.
I mean, with all those, things you've said, with all these, bringing
Stats.
us back, and you have the statistics, you have the figures. You're doing a great job, boy.
Thank you very much.
So, we have to appreciate this kind of thing that is missing.
Yes. Yeah.
and it is not, you see, sometimes I think most of people in my generation will see them by the way they look, you know, and we don't see the content in them. And that is one of the problems we have. You see, we have to begin to understand history has been cancelled for a while, and we say, let's bring back history. Even in Germany, they knew what happened, but they are still saying it, that we have done something wrong, you know, and they don't mention the name of that guy, Adolf, they won't mention his, you know, surname, but they teach the people that, look, this is what this gentleman did. And by the way, this guy is not one of us. He came from somewhere, and he came to bamboozle us, and other people, you know, followed, you know. So these are the things that, you know, we have to begin to teach the people, like all the things he has just reeled out now. You see, my concern is this: for how long are we going to be looking back and be saying that we have to make a change, and we are not moving forward? That's the problem. So if
why aren't we moving forward?
It's the people. People are selfish. People are greedy. Even if the man on the street is the same poor man, you call poor man, you give him 2,000 naira for a charge card, he will go home peacefully again and say, look, forget about it. I'm okay. I don't want to die. You see? So, but then people will come back again and say, Fela said all these things. Fela Nicola Kukutina. He has sung about all these things. He has said a lot about all these things. What's happening? Yes, play any of the music. You begin to hear what is happening now. It has been there. You know. So, but where do we go from here? It is enough. Where do we go? And this is why I'm saying, looking at what the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is doing, I think he's making effort to make these changes. Look, when the former Vice President went to the hospital here, Dosha's clinic or Dosha's hospital here, he said, look, he's not traveling now. He wants to do that repair of his leg or whatever. He went here and he was treated. Do you
Vice
know?
President Osinbajo.
Shibajo, right? Yes. So he made a good point, and people now respected him for that. And I think until when we begin to have, the private sector is booming in that area, but can the people afford it? Now the government is saying, let's have a standard health insurance scheme for everybody. We didn't have that before. But there were some governors, government system that said, look, health is free, education is free. Jakonde did it in Lagos.
Yeah, but there was the NHIS, which was the National Health Insurance Scheme, which was introduced by Obasanjo, if I'm correct.
Right.
I think that was in 1999,
Did it work?
2000.
How many people grabbed that?
Right,
so, but now we are doing that
civil
again.
Service level.
Yes, but now we are doing that, especially here in Lagos, you have Ilera Eko, and they are saying, look, you can get it. There will be some areas whereby they will miss the steps, but then we'll correct it. If we have missed the step at some point and we are corrected, it's a different thing. But where we don't just, and those who messed up with the money, where are they? They have gone and they are gone forever. You can't trust it. So these are the things we have to fight. We have to fight a system, or we have to bring back a system whereby you don't just steal government money and take it for granted that it is gone, it is gone. Right. You know, or you go and make a plea and say, okay, you stole 50 billion, let me pay just 3 billion and go away with the rest. It's not in our constitution, but we are bringing all those things in because it's paddy and no paddy for jungle, they say. So there's paddy in the jungle right now. So these are the things we have to begin to look at so that people like Samson will have a good record. You know, how many people knows this archive.ng? You know, so we have to begin to say, look, if you need any part of our history, go to this, you know, website and grab it, because then there was no place to keep them, and they can just burn a place and say all the files are burnt.
And the monkeys
so, but right
and
now,
rats
these guys,
came in and
yes, you remember the story? A monkey came to take some billions, rats even ate some things in the
a snake swallowed how many billion?
Billions.
So I think it's in I don't know.
30-something billion or whatever. And they swallow it today. We didn't find the snake and the person who kept it. So a lot of things are happening.
And so, Queen, you want to go ahead?
No, you go ahead.
If both of you, right, you're working to archive our history, and you have long been a seasoned, public affairs analyst, and so the both of you, best people to ask this question.
Yeah.
If you have to pick one domain for Nigeria to make a leap in the next 5 years. And you said that the president can't do everything. Yeah. And you've also chronicled how the more we look, the more, things remain the same. What domain should we be improving on at this time? Do you think it's security? Do you think it's infrastructure? Do you think it's, politics or education? What's one that we can make a huge leap in the next 5 years?
Yeah. You see, it's a very complicated question to answer straight in that way. Because if you look at security, once the people are secure, look at what is happening in Kwara and in Kogi. So this thing is spreading gradually. And we have to stop it at a point. But how do we stop it? We are overstretching even some of our military guys, some of the security guys. So you see them being killed, and you are not happy about that. Nobody is going to be happy about that as well, not even the military guys. So security is very vital. When you have security, when you have peace in your neighborhood, when you have peace in your home, you are talking about marriage, marital vows. You make a vow that till do you part, and after 3 months you are saying that, look, I'm not going to wait for death. Is this quarter of money is going to do us part? So a lot of things have to be, but security, even the infrastructure you want to build, you need security to make sure that the people can walk without anybody harassing them. The business you want to set up, you want to make security a guarantee for the people so that they can even come to work. So security is number one. Then if you don't have good education, then how do you have the people to do all these researches we are talking about? I don't know how many research centers we fund. But then before, now there's something good that there were researchers in Nigeria, there were research centers and people were doing, but now let's begin to fund researches. Let's begin to do something. If not for these Gen Z guys, who are those to talk to us about?
Very curious.
Yeah, they are curious to know.
Very curious.
So now their curiosity is leading us to get something great. Yeah. And then that is why we can even manage our cell phones. Most people have phones of 300 and whatever. They don't even know how to manage it.
So security.
Security is security, cyber security is part of it.
Cyber security, so all encompassing.
Yes.
Something yourself.
Yeah, to me, I kind of agree with him. Like, it feels like an impossible decision to make, right? Because a lot of them are also like interlinked, right? So you want to say security because lives are involved. The longer it takes you to solve insecurity, the more lives that you lose. But you also want to solve electricity, the power issue, for example, because it's going to feel like our industrial enterprise. Yeah. And for example, if you solve insecurity and that is not solved, it means less people are like engaged in employment, which means insecurity can potentially return. And then you also want education. You want to get children off the streets, because the longer they remain on the streets, the longer you have, again, that insecurity explosion. So I think there's I was talking about a thing yesterday where I said, for like Nigeria's problems, it feels like they are like 10 things that have
Hydra heads.
Exactly, they have to work in concert with each other in a very specific order. So I would not want to make like a very specific, say, this one thing we have to fix, because it feels like at the very least we have to do 3 things at the same time.
And I'm glad you said 3 things at the same time, right? Because when you look at the insecurity challenges itself, as you rightfully said, it's education, is a lack of employment, or the high rate of employment, even though this administration would deny that. But also, it's also electricity as well, because it will fuel industrialization. Right. It would increase employment, but employment also means skills, right? And the education has to come in.
Right. It's this conversation just gets me. There's just something burning inside. You're like, But you mentioned that our president is doing his best. Of course he can't do it alone. Of course he said the worst is over. Amen to that. And so my question to both of you is, of course, a lot of Nigerians will say that the reforms are slow. Like the process is dragging. Like when are we going to wake up and you're having light? Yes, we not at in 2025 we're still saying, oh, Nepal is light. Like it's challenging. And of course, you also mentioned the security people being at risk. So the people who are going to protect the people also have families. So they don't want to really just put their life at risk because government would do anything. So my question is, what can Nigeria do? How are they going to translate this vision for Nigerians to say, okay, we can see the work? What are the things you feel like they need to put in place for Nigerians to say, okay, hands up.
At least we're trying.
Something.
You see, it's going to take some time, like I said. So, but when you look at this electricity...
So patience.
Yes, not just patience. People can be patient with you, but do something that will make them to be patient.
What's that?
So, like, look at this electricity we're talking about. Those guys who are repairing generators now, the gens, they are not happy again because they're not making enough money to repair the gen. Those guys selling the diesel, they're not happy because people are not buying the diesel because now the government said, oh, okay, Gencos, Discos, call them any cool you like. So you now have ABC, categorization of what's it called? Consumers now. You have band A, B, C, and D or E. I don't know. But then you see that the government has funded them to a point, and this thing is really improving. Don't say it's working, but at least it's improving in most areas. I mean, yes, but now I don't see people shouting up NEPA where I am right now because about 20 hours. Even some people want this electricity to be shut down for 2 or 3 hours.
I know a rich person when I see them, but how they do it? But when I hear them, they say up NEPA. I know. You know what I'm saying? I know you're rich because of how you say you don't hear people say up NEPA in your neighborhood.
He's enjoying the reforms.
You're enjoying the.
I live in a village. Don't mind me.
Oh please.
Yes, I tell you, I live in a village.
What if it's to his village?
Good village, not the GRA.
No, my brother face to his village. And when you think about his outskirts.
But I see that it's improving, and people can be patient based on that.
Yes.
But when you are looking, let's look at this job thing we're talking about. The Ilaje people, the job people, they are fishermen. And the sea surge and all those things, they can't really go into the places, in the lagoon or the sea or wherever. So now we have to say, look, if you want to work, let's give you this fish farm in your area so that you begin to make money out of it. So that there will be just peace in that area. So that everybody will not be looking into how to really go and make Omonile kind of style and make money. So let's begin to work at something that will make the people happy. And if you say you want to give money to people, do we have the data of the people who are giving money to? You say you are giving certain amount of money, 20,000, 70,000 to people every month. Who are the people? Maybe these guys will begin to do the data of the people. And that, look, in Koshofe, in Magodo, in wherever they gave this kind of people. I think we need all the data. Without the data, we cannot even get everything that we want. We cannot even measure. What's the metrics of saying this?
As I'm saying data, that reminds me of last administration, late President President Buhari, the late president, where a lot of critics came out to say why he had to let go of the DG of the Bureau of Statistics, and that's none other than Mr. Yemi Kale, and then and then we started seeing the numbers sort of skew when it comes to the National Bureau of Statistics regarding unemployment, inflation, and a number of things. We started seeing the numbers shake, and really and truly, the economists and those who were looking at the numbers and the data at the time was saying that it was a big mistake to have let Yemi Kale go. But I wish we can continue the discussion. But very stellar contribution from both of you. I must say thank you, gentlemen, for coming. Many thanks to you, Mr. Joe Femi-Dagunro. He is a seasoned public affairs analyst, and also to Samson Toromade, who is the honorary Gen Z amongst us. He's a chief storyteller at kidnapping.ng. Well done to you guys for all the hard work that you're doing, and we look to have you back on as well on the program again.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for the info, gentlemen. Thank you.